Hello, everyone, and welcome to Divergent Dialogues podcast. Today, we will be talking about challenges in learning. So, I feel like that's a very relevant topic for both autistic folks and ADHDers.
Absolutely.
We usually have a very tumultuous experience with the education system. Um, so yeah, I guess we might start with like primary school experiences, and maybe share a little bit about like our experiences, a bit of the research, and then kind of progress through high school and university. I guess Teena and I can speak to that, like at all those stages as well as the research. So yeah, Teena, you were mentioning that a lot of the research that you were looking at for ADHD is it was kind of that younger cohort that.
Yeah, it when I first started sort of diving into the research, with sort of more broad search terms, looking at ADHD and learning, what are the challenges that we experience, and what is it about ADHD that makes learning challenging? The vast majority of the research, the search results were directed towards younger children, and a lot of it was about the how to help kids sort of be in the classroom, as opposed to what it is that is making it sort of difficult. And trying to find things specifically for the adolescent or the adult learner, required more digging. And when you're an ADHDer, unless you're hyper focusing and you're really going down a rabbit hole with it, you're not going to dig.
It's a shallow little, like a what are they, prospecting in the water with for the gold. Yeah, you just do a little sieve and hopefully you get a gold nugget.
Yeah, so it really highlighted that although we are we are sort of looking more at this stuff for adults and adolescents, but the research is still very much so heavily weighted towards children when talking about ADHD and learning.
Yeah. So I guess what were some of those challenges that showed up in the research for like young ADHDers?
So in the primary school years, the children, according to the research, the difficulty is with the like the getting up and moving around, the motor hypermobility.
That too, but that's a separate thing.
Yeah, hyperactivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really struggling to sit in your chair and listen, focus, pay attention, face the front, all of that kind of stuff. Which makes sense because those younger years you spend a lot of time outside running around doing whatever you want. So that's quite a challenge for younger kids. And then what did you find in relation to autism?
Yeah. So not surprisingly, a lot of the research talked about how autistic students struggled with the classroom environment, particularly from a sensory perspective. Really, yeah, really challenging. A lot of the I work with clients from all ages, and I've worked with some young autistic ADHDers in primary school, and just the sensory overwhelm and the meltdowns. So, especially if they're not diagnosed, like essentially they'll be having meltdowns at school, and then the teacher will be talking to the parent and going, look, there's something going on here, like you need to take them ASAP to see someone to help them to emotionally regulate.
Mm,
Yes, that's the buzzword, emotionally
yeah.
regulate. And like I'll see them and I'll start exploring, and sometimes it's the sensory issues and they are struggling all day. And another thing to consider as well is that autistic kids, even from really, really young, can be masking, particularly girls, or people socialized as girls growing up. There can be a lot of masking involved, and sometimes the meltdowns might not be occurring in the classroom, but it might be when they get home. So they've held it in all day,
Yeah.
and they get home to their safe space, and then it's just like an explosion, and it goes.
Similarly with ADHD, because especially again talking about young people who are conditioned into the female gender role, where if you've got that hyperactivity, whether it's the motor hyperactivity, the verbal hyperactivity, you just really want to be the good girl, quote unquote, and that role comes with very clear descriptors in our society, such as be a good girl, go and sit down. Be a good girl, go and listen to the teacher. Be a good girl, look to the front of the classroom and do your work. All of those kinds of things. So when you're an ADHDer who's burning to say something, I absolutely know all the answers, let me talk, or just needing to move your body, the fear of wiggling in your seat means I'm not a good girl. So you put all your energy and your mental capacity into urging yourself not to move. And I remember my daughter telling me during her assessment for ADHD that she would sometimes tie her shoelaces together under the table to help her to stay sitting so she wouldn't get up and move around. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a lot for a little kid to be thinking of, because getting up and moving around was such a cannot do it.
Yeah, I have this distinct, I'm like, I don't know if they're trauma memories. Probably all these memories coming up. Yeah, anyway, but I laugh. I shouldn't. Like this is hard. This is traumatic. These are traumatic experiences for young people, because you feel trapped. Like I have this memory of, because you have to sit down cross-legged on the floor, which is so uncomfortable. And I didn't know at the time, but I have hypermobility. So sitting in that way for long periods of time is really uncomfortable, gets really sore. And I just remember, I can't remember what we were doing, but basically we were sitting there for a really long time on the floor cross-legged. And I'm sitting there and I'm like in pain, want to move, like just so, like it just, like as an ADHD, when you have to sit still, it's just like this feeling inside of you, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and just sitting there like trying to hold my body and myself together, and it's so exhausting. And you can't listen, you can't absorb the information, because you're in your head just going, okay, stay still, hold, ouch, ouch, ouch. And yeah, luckily I don't think we had to do that a lot. We did luckily have chairs, but I think, but even no, because that's right, it's all coming back now. It's like this, the Pandora's box is opened. I think it was in primary school for parade, like we'd have like parade, I think it was like once a week or something or whatever. And if you were year like 1 to 6, you had to sit on the floor, but if you're in year 7, you got to sit on the chairs, because I don't know, for some reason they couldn't afford to buy, I don't know, whatever chairs, I don't know. Anyway, that was the deal. And it was like once you get to year 7, it's like, yes, I get to sit on the chair. I went to a public school, maybe private schools, they have chairs for everyone. Anyway, so yeah, so sitting there for parade for, I don't know when it went for, like an hour or something, half an hour to an hour. It was excruciating, absolutely, and boring as well. But that's aside.
Yeah, because it's not just the having to sit still, it's the having to pay attention, because as a young kid, that fear of being called out, or being recognized as like disruptive or whatever because you're moving around, that's bad enough, like you don't want that. But then on top of that, the fear of having the teacher ask you to answer a question, or the dreaded phrase, "Can you please repeat what I just said?" It's like, oh,
Here we go.
I wouldn't have been able to do that even if I was paying attention, because I already forgot the words you used.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, those situations, and even like getting in trouble like with my own mum, and she would ask those questions, and I'm just trying to keep my body still, do all the facial expressions that say I'm listening, and then of course I'm not hearing anything. And I'd be asked that question, and then my brain just explodes, because it's like, I don't actually know how to answer the question. Is it a trick question? Am I supposed to answer in the positive or the negative? I don't know. It's a lot of pressure. It makes sense why kids go home and end up having meltdowns in the afternoons.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember just some challenges with some of the tasks. So for example, like our teacher might be dictating something and we have to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, as an ADHDer with challenges with working memory, like that's just torture. That's just really cruel, because it's just like, there's no way, like even to this day, there's no way that I'm gonna, like, I can write the gist of something. Like if someone's talking, I can write the gist.
Yeah.
And later, like, obviously as part of my practice, I have to write notes. Like I do, like, how do I say this? If I have to listen and write at the same time exactly what someone's saying, like that's incredibly difficult for me. I can recall, like if I'm sitting there and typing out my notes, whatever, later, I can recall. But yeah, like just dictation, or even like reading out loud, I would feel really anxious about reading out loud, because sometimes when I'm reading, I don't know, I get a bit jumbled and I might say the like wrong word or mix it up, or what have you. So just a lot of these little things that for someone, people would just be like, oh, well, whatever. But it can be really anxiety inducing, because people do make, like, kids can be mean and they can make fun of you and be like, oh, well, you're stupid, or you can't read, these sorts of things. So yeah, it's really hard just turning up and doing the work, and you're trying your hardest, and then you're being told it's not good enough. Or you're sitting there, you're trying to be still and you're trying to listen, and oh, that's not good enough. And it can be really really challenging experience, school, for a lot of kids, and it can be really traumatizing.
Yeah, because I think that a lot gets blamed on willfulness, willful disobedience and willful disruptiveness, all that sort of that sort of stuff. And kids don't want that. They really do want to be the good kid. That's what they want. But yeah, it can be really, really hard when the criteria to meet the description of good kid is just out of reach for some people, because of the things we struggle with.
Yeah. So the message you're getting from your peers and your teachers is to essentially act the exact opposite of what your body is telling you that you need.
Exactly.
So, as you can imagine, it's very, very distressing. And I think, like, moving into high school, I think there's extra complexities added, because I guess the social landscape changes. People start to date, the social dynamics start to get a lot more complex, and that can be really, really challenging. And there's been some research around how autistic students face challenges in in higher education, but it would be applicable to high school as well, due to difficulties in navigating the hidden curriculum, particularly in social aspects of their courses or their teaching. So a lot of autistic people may not be privy to like those social norms. Like I just remember in high school, like, there's the cliques, and then there's the social hierarchies,
Yeah.
all these sorts of things, which I mean, I did have an awareness of, even when I was in high school, but there's just these little things that neurotypical people, like, they get it. And and even like sometimes power differentials between being a student and being a teacher. So like a student, autistic, I just it reminds me of young have you ever watched Young Sheldon?
Over the shoulder of my kids, they watch it a bit.
Anyway, so the producers of the show, they say, oh, he's not autistic, he's not autistic. And I mean, the reason they say he's not autistic is because in Big Bang Theory, basically he was the butt of most of the jokes because of his autistic presentation. So they probably don't want to say that now, because anyway, they will get in a lot of trouble. But
Yeah,
anyway, like, for all intents and purposes, like, come on. Like, he's gifted, like, he's definitely gifted, but he's definitely autistic as well. Anyway, whatever. But I just remember because Sheldon starts working, not working, he starts studying university when he's really, like, really, really young. And basically he's sitting there arguing with the lecturer and saying that they're wrong, and kind of getting up and like teaching the class and all these sorts of things. And in his mind, he's like, well, I'm there's no understanding of that kind of that power differential. And even like he'll go out to some of the lecturers and like hang out at their offices during lunchtime. Like he's like, oh, we're friends. Like, just like not understanding, just because someone's nice to you doesn't mean they're your friend. And also there's boundaries, like you can't be friends with your lecturers and like all this sort of stuff, where people might be going, oh, well, like they're rude or they're nosy or they're weird. Like that's just really weird. But in their mind, it's just not something that they're really aware of. They're like, oh, well, we're two people and we get along. Why can't we be friends?
Well, and especially with autistic people, ADHDers, we typically choose our friends based on shared interest, as opposed to those other social factors, like, we are both female, we are both a similar age. Okay, we must be friends. It is, yeah, we do sort of, make those connections around shared interests, and I guess intensity of those shared interests too, to some degree. So when you've got a lecturer or a teacher talking about the thing that you just love, and there's, you just want to talk more about that. So it makes perfect sense that can get confusing.
Even I'm just thinking, because I guess the way, like particularly high school, the way, or at least in the schools that I went to, the way it works is that like at lunchtime you kind of have your group of friends, but then you won't necessarily have like you may not have any of your friends in your classes. It's all kind of streamed, and you might all pick different subjects or whatever. So you might be lucky to have one or to have no friends in your classes. And so then people kind of naturally will gravitate and might make kind of classroom friends. So there's like lunchtime friends, which are usually like the besties, and then you might have the classroom friends. So in class you might connect with someone and you might have common interests, and let's just say that they're like the super popular, like in the popular group, and it's like, oh, well, we can be classroom friends. And then you go to talk to them at lunchtime and they just look at you like, oh, why are you talking to me? And it's like, oh, well, I'm really confused because we were at the classroom talking about that. Like, why can't we talk about that here? And like, it's just those sorts of little things where people are just left feeling confused and rejected, because there might be some challenges with, like, I guess being well, how do I say this? Obviously, people can learn to be aware of these things, but autistic people may not be as intuitive to these things as neurotypical people.
Yeah. I fell victim to the classroom friend scenario that you
Oh,
just
really? There you go.
yeah. Yeah, I was in class, I think it was English class actually, with one of the really, really popular girls. And so and we got on really well. So I just assumed that we're now friends. Because she would seek me out in the classroom and things like that. But yeah, outside of the classroom, it was very different and it did not make sense to me at all. But everyone else seemed to, like it was just, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, and it was really bizarre, really bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, even to this day, I'm like, that's ridiculous. But anyway, neurotypical people, they do their thing. I do my autistic thing.
Yeah.
Each to their own, I guess.
But
But
moving into the high school space, there's a lot more pressure on the executive functions as well, which then increases the challenges for the ADHDer, because now all of a sudden you've got different classes, different classrooms. You are carrying your stuff around all day, because you're not in the one space. So you have to be prepared at the beginning of every day. We're moving towards technology in schools, and a lot of schools are mandatory to have a laptop, but then you've got to remember to charge it or pack your charger. It just there is a lot of sort of little booby traps for the ADHD are moving into high school. And then of course you've got all your assessments and things like that you need to plan for and schedule and work on. Again, we're talking about things that the ADHD might not be super interested in. So really motivating yourself to do that is going to be quite challenging.
yeah. And I think for a lot of autistic folks, that transition from primary school to high school can be really challenging because again, this was my experience of school, and I think probably similar across Australia, is like primary school. You're in a classroom for the whole year. You have the same teacher, and then when you go up grades, you'll change classrooms and teacher. But for the year, you with the same kids with the same teacher, a lot more routine, a lot more structure. And then you go into high school, and there is an expectation that you're going to be a lot more autonomous. There's every subject you have a different teacher. Every subject there's a different mix of students. It's this whole thing, and like I just remember that even just walking between the classes would just be so emotionally dysregulating because kids are running to class and yelling and carrying on and all this kind of thing. So you're trying to transition from one classroom to the other, and there's just all this sensory stuff. And so it can be there can be a period of transition for a lot of autistic kids who can struggle with that. I also wanted to acknowledge that mainstream schooling isn't the only option. Like I do work with some children that and adolescents that do homeschooling as well, because unfortunately, there was a lot of bullying that they experienced, or they really struggled with the classroom environment or navigating things socially. And for them, homeschooling provides that flexibility for them to be able to learn and to be able to regulate.
Yeah, it is a good option for a lot of people, and I think that because there's variance on how and on how you can be enrolled in homeschooling as well. Like there's it's not just a one size fits all homeschooling option. Some people do the hybrid, where some of their stuff's online, some of their stuff's in the classroom. Yeah, it's such a good space, I think, for neurodivergent folk to have that option.
Yeah. In some schools, they have like flexible learning. So there may be schools that, just are 100% flexi schools, or like one of my sisters went to a school and they had like a Montessori stream in class, and which provides a lot more flexibility, and I guess you get to be more autonomous in your learning, and things like that. So I think, especially in light of a lot of the research that you read, Teena, it's important to consider whether a young person needs support to be able to engage in mainstream schooling, or if mainstream schooling just isn't set up for their needs, like the amount of, because like like even if you get like the dream teacher and the dream like school, and they're so accommodating and they're so on board and they're so great, like that there is a that when you're in a classroom full of students, like there's only so much you can accommodate. Like other kids, they're going to carry on and be silly and make noise, and might touch, or like they're kids too, they're trying to figure out and learn, and boundaries and things like that. So yeah, sometimes unfortunately for some people, despite trying really hard, it's just not a fit for them.
Yeah, there are a lot of distractions in a classroom, and yeah, it's you can't accommodate for all of them. And I guess with homeschooling there, or alternative schooling, that comes with a whole bunch of other difficulties for some people, like with that motivation and focus, attention, all that kind of stuff. But it is nice that there are options to consider.
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, I would have loved homeschooling. Loved it. It would have been so good. But for some, especially ADHDers, may need like that, maybe more accountability or more structure, as well. So yeah, I guess it's consider
I
what meets the needs of the child.
I think that I would have absolutely failed dismally at homeschooling, but I found mainstream schooling, and I went to a public school as well. It did not suit my learning needs either. So if I had a magic wand and could create the perfect learning environment for me, it would be, maybe 5 or 6 people just like me in a classroom, with a really engaging teacher who could support. That would be my perfect learning environment.
Oh gosh, what's my perfect learning environment? My perfect learning environment is at home with my cats, and then maybe like having online tutorials or things like that. So you're still getting that connection, like that social connection, and you get to have those interesting discussions. But I personally, I'm an ADHDer, but for some reason my combination is that like I have a lot of intrinsic motivation to do things. So I don't struggle as much with motivation and things like that, like a lot of the ADHDers that I work with do. So I'm grateful for that, because it can be really hard trying to get your brain to do things it just simply doesn't want to do or can't do. So yeah, for me, having like I need a ton of autonomy in order to feel happy, and that's why I love PhD, because with PhD there's a lot of autonomy and a lot of flexibility, so that really suits me. Whereas being in a classroom is very like sensory overwhelming, and just like I feel like caged in. It's like I'm in this cage.
Yeah, and I think that doing my PhD, I much prefer that, like that autonomous learning, because I love it. I love what I'm learning. But if I'm having to learn things that aren't so exciting, then I absolutely need to be caged in. If for whatever reason it's I must learn it, you cannot progress until you understand this thing that is terribly boring to my brain, then I need to be caged in.
I take the rip the band-aid off approach.
Mm.
Like I just want to get the boring stuff that I am not interested in just out of the way, so that I can just focus on the stuff that I want to do. Because even with PhD, like obviously you get, well, usually you get to pick a topic that you're really passionate about, that you enjoy. But there are boring bits. Like you have to do online modules about how to use databases and all this sort of stuff. but it is important. And now I have an awesome it was so funny. I use, what's it called, this citation software called Zotero. It's all new to me because I tried EndNote a while ago and it just did not, like, my autistic brain was like, what is this?
Yeah.
I tried Zotero and it really worked for me. And I was just like going on and on and on about it because I'm an Excel spreadsheet person. So it's like, I guess it's like an extension of that, like that, these organizing systems. And I was like going on and on about it to my partner. And I was like, I could be like the spokesperson for Zotero now because this is like the best thing, and like convert everyone to this. So originally I was like, this is like so redundant and boring and I'm not interested. And then I got to do my autistic thing and like organize all my references and make it all great. So yeah, sometimes it is about going, oh, this is boring. How can I make it fun, or how can I make it make sense to my brain, or all these sorts of things. But we'll probably talk more about that in the next episode when we're talking about the strategies and accommodations.
Yeah, but it is there are sort of different things that become challenging across the education journey, and because as you were saying, even when you are studying things that you really love, there's components that aren't as exciting, that that maybe don't come with as much dopamine as the other parts, so they can be really hard, and I think that sort of understanding how autism, ADHD is making your learning difficult it's really helpful and important, because everybody is different, in the way they struggle, in the way they thrive, and it's okay to have these challenges.
I mean, even our experiences, like we're both autistic ADHDers, and as we've been saying, like it seems like our ideal classroom environment would look different, and this, the strategies that we use would be different, and our preferences are different. So, like not all autistic ADHDers are the same, and I think like I work with some autistic ADHDers that seem to have more challenges with their like ADHD side of things, and then some that have more challenges with like the autism side of things as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I don't know. I maybe we could just talk a little bit about our university experience a little bit. So I think like, oh gosh, I have a few degrees. I don't know. It's like I don't know. I just I really enjoy learning, and I have to keep my brain busy, otherwise I get my brain and my mental health kind of goes meh. So I went into uni straight after school, and it was I really enjoyed it because I got to have a lot of that autonomy, and I got to organize myself. But like socially, it was I was probably like an awkward turtle, and I just kind of like hang around people and just kind of stand there until like maybe I could figure out what to say, or they'd talk to me, or I don't know. I kind of like hung around and hoped that people won't like go away or weird. But yeah, I think when I went to university, it was a breath of fresh air for me because it like I could study online, and it was a lot more flexible. I could choose my timetable within there, if you get in quick and you get the good timetable. So yeah, I really enjoy uni, whereas school I got through, but I really struggled to stay engaged and interested in that.
Yeah, I did as well. Like school was a lot more difficult. I didn't go to uni straight from school. I went into university as a mature age student in my 30s. And I was still an awkward turtle. I remember I remember my first day, first lecture, first everything, sitting outside the lecture theatre, and this other woman came and sat next to me. She was much younger than I was, but still a mature age student. And funny enough, her name was Nina, so it was like Nina and Teena. And we just kind of like just stuck together for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And it like I was so thankful, so thankful. And in that lecture we had to do this like group activity. Like, what a nightmare. I'm thinking, I'm so glad I have a person. And then there was somebody else sitting next behind us, and her name was Zula. And then the three of us sort of became friends for the next few years. Zula ended up leaving the degree early to pursue something else. And it was just, I just had this deep sense of relief that I had people that I could talk to. I didn't have to worry about that anymore, because I very quickly realized I had no idea what you're supposed to do. Just I remember sitting next to Nina, and she had said, "Hi, I'm Nina." And I'm like, "Oh, hi, I'm Teena." And I had these homemade rice paper rolls in a Tupperware sandwich box. And I said, "Would you like one? I also have a boiled egg." And I look back on that now and I think, yeah, that wasn't the best way to be friends, but it worked.
Yeah. I found like going to the O weeks are good because this is gonna sound terrible. Everyone's kind of desperate for friends. So like in terms of making friends, it's a lot easier. Like I say this a lot to like a lot of the I won't say the desperate part, but a lot of the young people that I support or people going into uni, I say, look, like I know like going to O week and stuff, it probably seems a bit overwhelming, but it's really important because people aren't in their cliques yet. There's no cliques that are formed. So you can kind of maybe kind of pick and choose the people or gravitate towards the people that you want to make friends with. And, usually there's like societies and things like that. And, they have like a little fair or whatever, and you can go around and you might be able to find people that have common interests. But once those cliques are formed, it's really hard to kind of get in. So from a social perspective, and again, like this is stuff that a lot of autistic folks like might not be like super aware of, or might not be a priority for them or whatever, because they're like, what, I've got my spreadsheets, I've got I've got everything organized, everything's all good, and that's what they're focused on, and focus on the study. And that was totally me. But yeah, these like social norms and things that if you're wanting to make friends, you don't have to, like that's optional. But if you're wanting to make friends, it's going to be a lot easier if you do that in the beginning of the semester or in O week, versus you turn up mid-semester and you're like, oh hey guys, and they're all like, oh, like we're in our cliques, like who are you?
Yeah. Or like the first group assignment, and it's like, yeah.
I think we had to do too many of those. I can't even remember if we did. There wasn't really many. I'm gonna. I mean, I'm a lot better now, but I was definitely that annoying take control person. But usually people are like, "Yep, cool, you can do all the work. I'll just sit back."
Yeah. I would always if no one was going to take control, I'm happy to do it, but I'd prefer somebody else to do it, because back then I wasn't so great with technology, much better now. And the fear of being the one tasked with setting up the group chat was just horrifying.
Yeah. For me, it was like, I was very not anymore, but I was very grades focused. So I'd be
Oh,
like,
yeah, me too.
I need to, and it's probably like it's an autonomy thing as well. Like it's like I need to be in control of my destiny and my grades.
Yeah. And I think what's really great as well is with the with the conversation around autism and ADHD getting bigger, stronger, louder, the ability to tap into accommodations and just understanding that the learning structures aren't fit for a lot of neurodivergent people. It just makes things a lot easier, because you don't have to be the weird kid that wants to wear or needs to wear headphones at the school assembly. There's lots more. people doing that these days, and it's I think and it's the conversations, keeping the conversations going, I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to stop this episode, because next episode we'll be looking into strategies and accommodations. So yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed listening to our episode. And yeah, if you were interested in the content of this episode, you can listen in a fortnight. We'll have another episode. And yeah, if you can check out our previous episodes as well. We've going to have a few guest speakers coming along soon, which we're really excited about. Have lots of really great and divergent dialogues with them. So yeah, so really exciting. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Awkward. Awkward turtle out.